Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings throughout boundless space, please everyone generate Supreme Bodhicitta. Now we will discuss generating the Supreme Bodhicitta. The people here at our academy are currently practicing the verses for generating Bodhicitta. Other members of our study groups are also studying together using our video recordings and study materials, and they are practicing the Bodhicitta recitation 100,000 times. It's very important that everyone can truly generate Bodhicitta. Regarding Bodhicitta, there are several ways to generate Bodhicitta. For example, in the Sutra of the 10 Dharmas, 4 reasons for generating Bodhicitta are explained. The first is generating Bodhicitta upon seeing the benefits of Bodhicitta. The second is generating Bodhicitta through developing sincere faith in the Buddha. The third is generating Bodhicitta upon seeing how pitiful sentient beings are. The fourth is generating Bodhicitta through the guidance and training of a spiritual teacher. Also, in the Bodhisattva stages, the reasons for generating Bodhicitta are discussed. Having excellent spiritual potential and also relying on the guidance of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and spiritual teachers, as well as seeing the suffering of sentient beings and so forth. In summary, when we generate Bodhicitta, we should think. In the past, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas generated this kind of mind and then benefited countless sentient beings. I too should do likewise. I want to benefit sentient beings. The only method to benefit sentient beings is to generate Bodhicitta. Therefore, in the most supreme King of all Dharma Sutra, it also says, if one rejoices in the enlightenment of past Buddhas, one must generate Bodhicitta and practice the Bodhisattva path. If we admire the aspirations and conduct of past Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, then we must definitely generate Supreme Bodhicitta. And we must put this Bodhicitta into action and practice it in our daily lives. Therefore, when we generate Bodhicitta, we must first cultivate the 4 immeasurables. When the 4 immeasurables are basically realized both theoretically and in practice, knowing the benefits of Bodhicitta, the advantages of Bodhicitta, and the suffering of sentient beings, then we should generate genuine Bodhicitta. This is very important. Regarding generating Supreme Bodhicitta, in the words of my perfect teacher, it is divided into classification of bodhicitta and the actual generation in 2 aspects. First, the classification of bodhicitta from the perspective of mind power. There are 3 types: bodhicitta like a king, bodhicitta like a boatman, and bodhicitta like a shepherd. First, kings must defeat all enemies and gain the support of their own side. They ascend to the throne themselves and then protect their subjects. Similarly, those with the first type of bodhicitta first aspire to achieve the state of perfect enlightenment themselves. Otherwise, having no ability whatsoever, it would indeed be difficult to liberate sentient beings. Afterwards, they establish all sentient beings in the 3 realms in Buddhahood. This is their way of thinking. This type of bodhicitta is called bodhicitta like a king. The second is so-called bodhicitta like a boatman, also called a ferryman. What is their aspiration? They and all their passengers simultaneously reach the other shore of the river. Similarly, aspiring for their own liberation while achieving Buddhahood themselves, they also wish for all sentient beings to achieve Buddhahood. This is called bodhicitta like a boatman. We know that when traveling by boat, it's impossible for the boatman to fall behind, or for me to cross first alone. It's impossible. Sentient beings and oneself achieve liberation at the same time. Bodhicitta like a shepherd. We all know that shepherds, in order to let cattle and sheep first eat good grass and drink good water, and avoid being harmed by wolves and other fierce beasts, drive them ahead while following behind themselves. Actually, the mentality at that time, any herder has no other purpose except to take good care of their livestock when herding them. So this last type of bodhicitta actually they themselves remain behind, with sentient beings achieving Buddhahood first and themselves last. Their sole motivation is thinking of sentient beings' liberation. Similarly, they aspire to first establish all sentient beings in the three realms in perfect enlightenment, and then achieve Buddhahood themselves. This is called Bodhicitta like a shepherd. Among these, Bodhicitta like a king is called Bodhicitta of vast aspiration. According to Finding Rest in the Nature of the Mind, all three types are explained there. All three are cited with scriptural authority from the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels. The first bodhicitta is called Bodhicitta of vast aspiration. It requires 33 immeasurable eons to be perfected. The mind power of this type of practitioner is relatively inferior, and their diligence is also inferior. We also call this the bodhicitta of those with Tao faculties. The second is bodhicitta like a boatman, also called bodhicitta of supreme wisdom. The mind power of this type of practitioner is intermediate, neither dull nor sharp, those with medium faculties. They require 7 immeasurable eons of time to achieve realization. This type of bodhicitta is intermediate, like Noble Maitreya. Some histories and treatises explain that Noble Maitreya has intermediate bodhicitta. Bodhicitta like a shepherd is called incomparable bodhicitta. Those who possess this type of bodhicitta have extraordinary and vast mind power. First, establishing all sentient beings in Buddhahood, then achieving Buddhahood themselves. This bodhicitta is truly extremely vast and can also be called a bodhicitta of those with sharp faculties. In terms of time, it requires 3 immeasurable eons, like Noble Manjushui's bodhicitta, precisely because Noble Manjushui's bodhicitta is especially supreme. In some scriptures, for example, all the Tathagatas of the fortunate eon first generated bodhicitta before Manjushui, who liberates sentient beings first. I have seen that Master Yingguang also spoke about this before. One who has not yet attained liberation, but first liberates others, has the Bodhisattva's aspiration. Actually, the others mentioned here probably refers to representatives of all sentient beings. Otherwise, when we generate bodhicitta, we wouldn't just think about liberating people first while we ourselves haven't yet been liberated. If the scope of bodhicitta only included humans, that would definitely not work. It encompasses countless sentient beings. However, nowadays in society, many people, including Buddhist practitioners, seem willing to make efforts when human welfare is mentioned. But regarding sentient beings other than humans, even some Mahayana practitioners don't particularly emphasize this. Actually, this kind of approach and behavior doesn't accord with Mahayana Buddhist teachings. We must certainly think of all sentient beings in the 3 realms. Regarding the 3 types of bodhicitta above, some people might raise this question. For example, if all sentient beings are liberated first and one achieves Buddhahood last, this question exists even when studying the ornament of clear realization. For instance, if all sentient beings are liberated first and one achieves Buddhahood last, how would one benefit sentient beings after achieving Buddhahood? Since all sentient beings have already been liberated, what would the Buddha do besides benefiting sentient beings? There's nothing else. What does the Buddha do? There are such questions, but we needn't worry about this. Actually, this doesn't mean that all sentient beings in the 3 realms are truly liberated. Would there ever be such a time? Sentient beings are limitless. If sentient beings had boundaries, they could indeed be completely liberated. But since sentient beings are boundless, there won't be a time when they're all liberated. Then why generate bodhicitta in this way? Actually, the power of our minds has great differences. If a person thinks, I'll first liberate all sentient beings completely, then achieve liberation myself, this mind power is extremely strong, and they actually achieve Buddhahood first themselves when sentient beings haven't been liberated much yet. In daily life, if we think I can starve to death but let you eat your fill first, with this mind power, they themselves won't encounter difficulties in life. Therefore, many great masters mainly describe differences in mind power. That is, when describing the differences in mind power of Mahayana practitioners, they use these three different analogies. These three analogies are established based only on the degree of aspirational resolve. It's not that sentient beings either all cross beyond samsara simultaneously with the Buddha and all sentient beings at the same time, or are all liberated first, or achieve liberation themselves without liberating a single sentient being first. Such phenomena don't necessarily exist. Therefore, when explaining this doubt, we must understand it through such principles. If we classify according to the levels and paths, the 5 paths and 10 bhumi levels, there are 4 types of bodhicitta. The bodhicitta of the path of accumulation and path of preparation is called bodhicitta of confident conduct. The bodhicitta from the 1st to 7th bhumi is called bodhicitta of pure intention. The 3 pure bhumi, 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumi, their bodhicitta is called ripened bodhicitta. The bodhicitta of Buddhahood is called unobstructed bodhicitta. Actually, this is also found in the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. Faith-based conduct and pure reliance, ripened result, and unobstructed. Bodhicitta depends on various levels, with 4 types of differences. There should be such scriptural authority. We've explained this before. At the path of preparation and path of accumulation, it's called bodhicitta of confident conduct. Why is it called confident conduct? Because at that time, bodhicitta belongs to ordinary beings level, and ordinary beings bodhicitta often generates within our minds a kind of conviction and encouragement. I must liberate sentient beings. I must benefit sentient beings. I must attain Buddhahood. I must generate supreme bodhicitta. There's a kind of forced or effortful bodhicitta in one's mind stream. This is called bodhicitta of confident conduct. From the 1st to 7th bhumi, the impure 7 bhumi's bodhicitta is called pure bodhicitta. Why is it called pure bodhicitta? Because from the 1st to 7th bhumi, one has transcended ordinary beings and entered sainthood. Having transcended ordinary beings and entered sainthood, their bodhicitta is not like that of ordinary people. No matter how ordinary people generate bodhicitta, there's still some selfish motivation mixed in. It's impossible to completely eliminate selfish motivation. Some people say, I don't have any self-interest whatsoever, but this might indeed be quite difficult. Many people say, oh, in this matter, from beginning to end, not even a tiny bit, not the slightest selfish motivation, absolutely none. It's completely for the people, for sentient beings, for the country, for society, and so forth. They all speak very nicely, but having absolutely none is very difficult for an ordinary person. However, 1st bhumi bodhisattvas and above, up to the 7th bhumi, have indeed transcended the ordinary level, so it's pure, completely motivated by benefiting sentient beings without ordinary mind. This is called pure bodhicitta. At the 3 pure bhumi, it's called ripened bodhicitta. Those who have studied Treasury of Abhidharma know what ripened results are. Whether you like it or not, this result has already matured. For example, the ripened result of falling into hell. Even if you don't want it, you must fall. Or ultimately in the human realm, the karmic results of killing leading to short life or many illnesses. Whether you like it or not, they will naturally mature. Similarly, when reaching the 3 pure bhumi, the conduct of benefiting sentient beings flows like water downstream, naturally spontaneous conduct. Benefiting sentient beings doesn't require others saying, hey, you go generate bodhicitta, or thinking to oneself, I've generated bodhicitta, I must help sentient beings. This isn't necessary. After the 7th bhumi, it naturally becomes bodhicitta like a ripened result, effortlessly perfect altruistic mind. Here it says ripened result. This actually means ripened. At the Buddha level, it's unobstructed, without any obstacles. At that time, both cognitive and afflictive obscurations have been eliminated, including the subtle ones. According to the Nyingma view, afflictive obscurations were completely eliminated before the 8th Bhumi. At that time, even the most subtle cognitive obscurations have been eliminated. Both obscurations have been left behind, completely pure. This is the purest time. So bodhicitta is divided into 4 types. In the worldly realm, some of our current bodhicitta indeed might need repeated self-reminding and attention. Otherwise, it's impossible to have bodhicitta like that of Buddhahood or the 3 pure bhumi. This is the complete classification from the perspective of levels and paths, the 5 paths and 10 bhumi. Speaking of the 10 bhumi, the earlier bodhicitta of confident conduct cannot be included. From the path of accumulation to the final path of no more learning, we can say this. Within this period, it's divided into 4 stages, as explained very clearly in the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. If we classify from the aspect of the essence of bodhicitta, there are 2 types, relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. Among these, relative bodhicitta is further divided into aspiration bodhicitta and application bodhicitta. The way of the bodhisattva also explains it this way. Just as people fully understand the difference between wishing to go and actually going, so should the wise understand the sequential difference between these 2 minds. We should completely understand aspiration bodhicitta, like wanting to go somewhere, while application bodhicitta is not only mentally aspiring to go, but actually beginning to practice in real action. Wise people can distinguish our bodhicitta based on this difference. One stage is mentally wanting to liberate sentient beings, and another is not only mentally vowing, but actually liberating in real action. The 6 paramitas and myriad practices have truly been implemented. Some people speak of generating bodhicitta every day, saying this for many years, but in reality, when encountering sentient beings, they never care. When it comes to their own affairs, they are particularly wide-eyed, with very quick actions and swift behavior. But when sentient beings are mentioned, their eyes start to close, and their behavior becomes slower and slower, like slow motion, gradually becoming motionless. This shows that some people have the mental intention but don't manifest it in action. However, some people have never generated bodhicitta but only do things behaviorally. This is action without aspiration, but it's not genuine bodhicitta. On the surface, it appears to be bodhisattva conduct, giving charity, maintaining precepts, doing various things. But they've never thought about liberating sentient beings or helping them attain Buddhahood. It's merely behavior. In reality, there's no true aspiration or mind guiding it. So nowadays, many people truly don't understand Mahayana Buddhism because they haven't studied it. Some people, including some spiritual teachers, emphasize not to study and contemplate. For some people with sharp faculties, indeed, the Chan school had such approaches. And in Dzogchen secret teachings, there are also individual sharp-facultied practitioners who might not listen to teachings at all, just receive direct pointing out. Or the Chan school would have them rest in meditation, and after resting, they'd enter very high states. We estimate there might indeed be such people, but many people particularly like to be this type of person because practicing preliminaries, generating bodhicitta, and the 6 paramitas are particularly tiring. So they definitely don't want to go from first grade through high school to university. From the beginning, they directly want to enter with a doctoral degree. They really want this. But even if one somehow obtains a doctoral certificate through various connections, when you're actually in real situations, without genuine doctoral knowledge, finding work would probably be very difficult. Just holding a certificate and going everywhere saying, I'm a postdoctoral graduate from such and such university. Not necessarily. So if you truly have such knowledge, even without such certificates or others' recognition, you are a great accomplished master. You are already enlightened, a realized one. Without it, they can actually do the same things. Here's an analogy about someone going to Lhasa. First, they mentally harbor the thought, I want to go to Lhasa. At the beginning, oh, I want to go to Lhasa. I want to go to India. If I want to go to India, let me see if I have enough money. They say it costs 20,000 yuan. I have 1,000 yuan somewhere. I should get that money back. I'll save another 10,000 yuan myself. If I save it, let me see. In 1 year, there's only a few hundred yuan interest. What to do? First, they constantly think about going to India or Lhasa. In Patrul Rinpoche's time, the furthest place was Lhasa. Going to Lhasa was something Tibetan people particularly yearned for. Seeing the Jowo Buddha statue was also the greatest dream of their lifetime. So for example, if a person goes to Lhasa, they must first have the idea of wanting to go. Similarly, initially harboring such an aspiration in mind, I want to enable all sentient beings to attain perfect enlightenment. This corresponds to wishing to go, the action of wanting to go. This is called aspiration bodhicitta. We've already explained this when teaching the way of the Bodhisattva. Everyone should be clear about aspiration bodhicitta. I want to go liberate sentient beings. Many people might have such thoughts when studying some Mahayana sutras and treatises. Oh, I want to liberate sentient beings. Liberate sentient beings. Verbally, many people raise their hands and make vows. Oh, I want to liberate sentient beings. I want to participate. But actually, when truly liberating sentient beings, especially when encountering sentient beings with bad tempers, it's very easy to back down. Someone going to Lhasa has already prepared the provisions, pack animals, and everything needed for the actual journey to Lhasa. They formally set out on the journey. They've truly hit the road. Previously, traveling by horseback or doing prostrations or whatever, everything is prepared. The actual journey from that time is called formally setting out. Similarly, for enabling all sentient beings to attain perfect enlightenment, actually studying and practicing in real action the 6 parameters, generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom, this corresponds to actual practice, truly practicing. You've truly hit the road. From today, you've started the journey. For example, when some people go to India, individual Dharma friends see them off. Be careful on the road. Goodbye. They themselves also feel, oh, I'm truly on the road now. The process of being on the road corresponds to application bodhicitta. At the beginning, I vow to liberate sentient beings. Whether much or little, however it is, I think those of us present here should all have made this vow and recite it daily. Not only making the vow, but also doing it to some degree in action. You should consider yourself on the journey, not just beginning or not having started yet. Perhaps some who are just beginning to study Buddhism or just starting Mahayana practice haven't formally set out yet. They are just preparing provisions in that process. This is called genuine application bodhicitta. Such aspiration bodhicitta and application bodhicitta actually belong to relative bodhicitta. We must definitely generate relative bodhicitta. Generating this kind of bodhicitta is still very difficult. It's not that easy. Speaking verbally is easy, but in our lives, we indeed encounter various entanglements and some obstacles. In such cases, there are certain difficulties, especially for householders. It seems the Sutra on Upasaka precepts says, for monastics to generate bodhicitta is not difficult, but for householders to generate bodhicitta is truly inconceivable. It's extremely difficult. What reason does it give? Because householders have many entanglements and many obstacles, making their genuine aspiration very difficult to realize. So nowadays, some people truly live at home on one hand, while also helping their families, society, and many people, yet simultaneously generate such Mahayana bodhicitta. I find this extremely precious. I especially hope that each person during their lifetime will not abandon this even when encountering the greatest difficulties. Even if you haven't cultivated this relative bodhicitta particularly successfully, as long as you don't abandon this mind, as we've previously used the analogy from the Flower Ornament Sutra of the Diamond Jewel, in the future your virtuous roots won't be destroyed and you won't fall into lower realms. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsho Rinpoche previously taught this in various instructions. So whether householders or monastics, having encountered such excellent Supreme Bodhicitta, we must never abandon it. This discusses relative bodhicitta. For us, we can only discuss relative bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is quite difficult. On the path of accumulation and path of preparation, relying on such relative bodhicitta through the power of long-term mind training. Finally, at the first bhumi, on the path of seeing, directly realizing the true nature of all phenomena, the wisdom of emptiness free from all conceptual elaborations. This is what's called ultimate bodhicitta. On the path of accumulation and path of preparation, we diligently practice repeatedly after one immeasurable eon, or in a time somewhat less than one immeasurable eon. Finally, upon reaching the first bhumi, we truly comprehend the true nature of all phenomena. Or even if one hasn't reached the first bhumi, in various Buddhist schools there are often some enlightened ones. These enlightened ones should basically attain states similar to ultimate bodhicitta. I think genuine enlightened ones should start from the first bhumi. Complete enlightenment should begin at the first bhumi level. But generally speaking, from the patience level of the path of preparation, we don't fall into lower realms. At that time, there's also a general aspect of enlightenment regarding the essence of all phenomena. From that time, one can basically, I use the word basically here. Otherwise, some who have studied logic might debate with me later. Those who haven't studied logic don't matter. Verbal mistakes are just that. Those who have studied logic are a bit scary, so I must add basically, otherwise. So such realization might also be called that from the path of preparation onward. But this isn't genuine enlightenment like that of first bhumi bodhisattvas. The bodhicitta that arises in such persons' mind streams, as also found in the Medicine Buddha liturgy, ultimate bodhicitta is a state free from all conceptual elaborations. Genuine ultimate bodhicitta can only be attained through the power of practice, through long-term practice, attained through cultivation, not dependent on liturgies. Reciting some liturgies or merely verbally generating supreme bodhicitta. Nowadays, many people constantly speak of bodhicitta, but whether it can truly arise in their mind streams is hard to say. However, beginners generating relative bodhicitta need to rely on liturgies. Why do I particularly enjoy giving teachings daily? The reason is, we have the bodhicitta generation liturgy at the beginning, and we all recite it. 接他闻接得杀机，向车特哪戒爬当. We all continuously recite. Just as past Tathagatas generated bodhicitta, I too generate bodhicitta. Reciting this daily, at least once, for us ordinary beings, this liturgy is indispensable. Indeed, daily, when we have class, we have the opportunity to recite together. If there's no class, it's best that you yourself, according to Bodhisattva vow requirements, recite 3 times during the day, 3 times at night, 6 times daily. But this is also difficult to do. I think the minimum requirement of once daily would be acceptable among practitioners. Those who don't even do it once daily, not even once in 10 days, not even once monthly, not even once yearly. Such people, unless they're bodhisattvas, we don't speak of bodhisattvas. They don't need requirements. We have no requirements for bodhisattvas. But as ordinary beings, not reading the liturgy even once in a year, yet daily thinking very highly of oneself and considering oneself accomplished. What exactly is accomplished? Being in a confused state doesn't qualify as accomplishment. I think this isn't good. Everyone shouldn't deceive themselves and others. You should truly acknowledge that you're actually an ordinary being. Why? If greed, hatred, and delusion, all afflictions, truly don't exist in your mind stream, let's consider this carefully. Indeed, perhaps you might have attained arahood, stream entry, or some noble fruition. But if afflictions of greed, hatred, and delusion are so strong and fierce, then considering oneself accomplished might mean being accomplished in afflictions, not necessarily otherwise. So sometimes we humans find it difficult to recognize our own faults. Accepting bodhisattva vows before a teacher is acceptable, or taking them yourself before the refuge field. It's best to recite the Bodhicitta verses once daily. This is very necessary. During our lifetime, we don't need to keep changing. Some people particularly like to make changes. I'll temporarily study with this teacher for a while. Then after some time, I'll go study with another teacher. Oh, how's this lineage? Let me taste it. Then after some time, no, it's still sour. I need to go take a bite at another teacher's place. Constantly changing like this. Actually, no matter how much you change, the basic teachings of Mahayana Buddhism are all the same. Whether Kagyu, Kadampa, Gelug, Chan or Pure Land schools, they are all the same everywhere. People with unstable minds won't necessarily find genuine teachings wherever they go. So we should still practice long-term and stably, making one Dharma our main practice throughout our lifetime. To ensure the bodhicitta we've attained doesn't deteriorate but increases daily, we should repeatedly uphold the bodhisattva vows anytime and anywhere. Now we'll discuss the actual generation of bodhicitta. Previously, for everyone's collective cultivation of bodhicitta, we also briefly explained this. Today we'll also briefly explain it. Just like when we practiced refuge earlier, clearly visualizing the refuge field. In front, Guru Pamasambhava, including Buddha statues, Dharma texts, Sangha members, and so forth. Visualize all the supports of the three jewels in front of yourself. In the space before you, visualize Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, lineage masters, and Dharma protectors. Clearly visualize the entire refuge field as witnesses to your bodhicitta generation. Because if I'm going to generate bodhicitta in a place where no one can see or hear, this bodhicitta generation wouldn't be good. So we must definitely generate bodhicitta before all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and lineage masters. Then silently contemplate in your mind. This is very crucial. We're currently practicing bodhicitta generation 100,000 times. Have you thought about it? That day I did teach it, but if you don't think about it or practice it, there's no way. Longchenpa also used other analogies to explain this. All sentient beings pervading the realm of space, throughout beginningless lifetimes, without exception, have all been our fathers and mothers. When they were our parents, they were exactly the same as our present biological parents, loving us dearly and carefully nurturing us. When there was delicious food, they let me eat first. When there were nice clothes, they let me wear them first. They raised us with extreme kindness. Their kindness is as heavy as mountains. So in general Kadampa teachings, first recognizing mothers, then remembering their kindness, there are 7 methods of cultivation for practice. So all sentient beings in the 3 realms have all been my parents. When they were my parents, truly there was no difference from present parents, except for very few with various bad karmic connections from past lives. Parents' love for their children cannot be described in words. In this way, all sentient beings in the 3 realms have indeed been our parents. For this point, there are many scriptural authorities and logical proofs. Generally speaking, through scriptural authority and logic, we first understand theoretically. Then, through formal practice, we can generate genuine certainty in our minds. I must definitely liberate all these sentient beings. All these deeply kind parent sentient beings are now sinking in the turbulent waves of samsara's great ocean of suffering. Shrouded by layers of ignorant darkness and delusion, they are confused about distinguishing right from wrong paths. They cannot meet spiritual teachers who show the true correct path. Lonely and pitiable, no one rescues them, no one helps them. They have no hope and no refuge. They are like helpless blind people wandering in the wilderness. All these mother sentient beings are now wandering in samsara. What meaning would there be if I alone attain liberation? The Buddha also said in the Sutra of the Great Assembly, because sentient beings' minds are confused, they fall into the river of birth and death. Like the blind who cannot see, they are constantly overwhelmed by suffering. This means oppressed by suffering. These sentient beings, because their minds have the delusion of greed, hatred, and ignorance, have all fallen into the river of birth and death. Like blind people who cannot see anything, very pitiable. constantly oppressed by various sufferings. So these sentient beings we must indeed think of liberating. If we don't liberate them, then our bodhicitta cannot be accomplished. Therefore, for all sentient beings, we must generate supreme bodhicitta and emulate the vast conduct of past Buddhas and bodhisattvas. For all the countless beings in samsara, without leaving anyone out, so they all attain liberation, we diligently study and practice. And we should recite the following bodhicitta verses as much as possible. For bodhicitta generation, we can also use the verses from Illuminating the Path to Liberation. According to the Nyingtik tradition, the heart essence of the Great Perfection lineage, from the Longchen Nyingtik, Words of My Perfect Teacher liturgy, the verses from the Preliminary Practice liturgy also teach thus. Emaho, various appearances are like moon ripples in water. Sentient beings with continuous mind streams drift in samsara. For them to rest in the luminous expanse of self-awareness, I generate bodhicitta with the four immeasurable states. We can recite this in Tibetan as well. The meaning is, all appearances in the world are like ripples in water, appearing yet without inherent nature. But sentient beings don't understand this and continue drifting in samsara due to ignorance and afflictions. All sentient beings in samsara, may they attain eternal liberation or rest in the luminous Dharma Dhatu of self-awareness. Therefore, we should first generate the four immeasurables. When the state of the four immeasurables reaches a certain level, then we formally begin generating bodhicitta. When formally generating bodhicitta, while reciting and contemplating, we must think of sentient beings' happiness. Our efforts are for sentient beings' happiness. Worldly beings seek their own pleasure but find no joy, constantly experiencing extreme suffering. This should be from the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. Bodhisattvas diligently work for others' benefit, achieving both benefits and supreme happiness. Worldly people often seek their own happiness, but the result is not only no happiness. Instead, they constantly sink in samsara experiencing suffering, so they never get rest or peace. But bodhisattvas constantly help sentient beings. Ultimately, both self-benefit and others' benefit are accomplished, achieving the most supreme happiness. Why is it that many people with vast minds actually don't need to worry about their own lives at all? As long as they help others, their own joyful feelings will always increase. So when we generate bodhicitta, we must always think of sentient beings' happiness. When you recite the bodhicitta verses, sometimes visualize the forms of Buddhas and Tathagatas. Sometimes contemplate the benefits and qualities of bodhicitta. The benefits and qualities of bodhicitta are found in many sutras and treatises. Sometimes think about how Buddhas and bodhisattvas contemplate how sentient beings suffer so much. We should also think this way. The Flower Ornament Sutra also says, all sentient beings in various realms each receive bodies according to their karma. All sentient beings each take rebirth in samsara according to their own karmic power, oppressed by birth, old age, sickness, and death. Body and mind constantly experience boundless suffering. Oppressed by birth, old age, sickness, and death. Constantly experiencing various sufferings in samsara. To bring peace and happiness to those sentient beings, generate the supreme bodhicitta resolve. Bodhicitta resolve seems to mean bodhicitta, as explained in the Flower Ornament Sutra. The meaning is, all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara each take rebirth according to their own karma. In the process of taking rebirth, they all have the immeasurable sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death oppressing them. We want to rescue these sentient beings. We want to help these sentient beings. We must, like the great masters and Buddhas and bodhisattvas of the past, generate supreme bodhicitta while reciting the verses 100,000 times. We should recite these Bodhicitta verses at least 100,000 times. If everyone often thinks about sentient beings' affairs, after you've completed this practice, you'll definitely have strong power for benefiting sentient beings. Some might not have cultivated sufficient quality, and just reciting verbally might not lead to great progress. Regardless, according to the tradition of the lineage masters, when we practice the preliminaries, we must definitely recite this 100,000 times. Each time we visualize and recite in this way, after finishing the recitation, finally there's a conclusion and dedication. At the conclusion, finally visualize all the noble assembly with full confidence and respectful devotion. All the noble ones transform into light from the edges inward, and we develop infinite faith in them. When approaching the dedication, generate infinite faith. Finally, all the lineage masters gradually transform into light. The light merges into the central embodiment of the three jewels, Vajra Guru Padma Sambhava. Guru Padma Sambhava gradually merges into your body, speech, and mind into your body. Through this external condition, generate genuine ultimate bodhicitta from the mind streams of all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and noble ones in the refuge field. We should think that Guru Padma Sambhava and all lineage masters and noble assemblies of the Mahayana and Hinayana have immeasurable wisdom and immeasurable compassion in their mind streams, especially ultimate bodhicitta. All merges into my own body and mind. Then, in such a state, we should recite, Supreme Precious Bodhicitta, may the unborn be born, may the born not deteriorate, may it increase day by day. Actually, this is from the sutras. We often say, Sangye cho dang cho ki cho namla, ji banyen pa mi bayang, gun ne gun de per wa shog. This is also in our daily bodhicitta generation liturgy. Many masters, when they go to Buddha statues or sacred places, when they arrive before these Buddha statues or at sacred places, they make aspirations that bodhicitta that hasn't arisen in their mind streams will quickly arise. And if they already have bodhicitta, may it not deteriorate. Oh, my bodhicitta used to be quite good, but recently I somehow can't find my bodhicitta anywhere. Don't be like this. It seems in the sutra on the questions of Brahma Vishesha Jinting, there are words similar to this. For those who haven't yet generated bodhicitta, enable them to generate it. For those who have already generated it, enable them not to retreat. This seems quite similar to these verses. There's such a teaching, so it's very important for us to normally generate such minds. And with emulating the hero Manjushri's courageous wisdom, and Samantabhadra's wise conduct as well, I now dedicate all virtuous roots following their constant practice, using these verses from the King of Aspiration prayers. However, Manjushri's wisdom and Samantabhadra's conduct make dedications. I also follow their dedications. Such supreme great vows are praised by Buddhas of the three times. I now dedicate all virtuous roots to achieve Samantabhadra's excellent conduct. Finally, we use these two verses for dedication. If there's time, we can recite all of Illuminating the Path to Liberation at the end, or the King of Aspiration prayers. Or, if you've previously received empowerment, some secret teachings like the Great Perfection Aspiration prayer. Finally, when concluding the session, we still use these dedication texts. Actually, each of us, when cultivating bodhicitta, should really treat it as something very important to cultivate. In this way, bodhicitta will arise in your mind stream. If you're careless, reciting continuously on the surface, even faster than the Avalokiteshvara mantra. Originally, there are 4 lines in one verse. It's impossible to be that fast. That fast? Where is there such a thing? I saw a Dharma friend the other day reciting bodhicitta verses faster than reciting the Avalokiteshvara mantra. In this way, Probably in just 2 or 3 days, 100,000 repetitions will be completed. First, don't be particularly fast in terms of quantity, but repeatedly contemplate in your mind the benefits of bodhicitta and the cultivation methods of bodhicitta. You must pray for all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' blessings to merge into my mind stream. In my mind stream, previously there was the ordinary being's selfish mind. Everything I do daily is me, me, me. Nothing exists except for me. But starting from today, I must have all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas bless me. I want to benefit sentient beings. Make such aspirations. Such bodhicitta generation has completely encompassed the essence of the 84,000 Dharma gates taught by the Buddha. Bodhicitta is indeed the essence of the 84,000 Dharma gates taught by the Buddha. It can be called teaching where having it all is sufficient, lacking it all is deficient. If you have it, everything is sufficient. All practices are already complete. If you lack bodhicitta, no matter how many teachings or practices you have, they're useless. They can't be applied. It's like a universal panacea that cures all diseases. One medicine for all diseases. In ancient times, there was such a medicine that could treat all kinds of various illnesses with one medicine. Actually, this is described in detail in the Dharani Collection Sutra. Also in the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels, volume 96, also says, Bodhicitta is supreme, like the Agata medicine. It can eliminate all diseases and give all happiness. Bodhicitta is actually the most supreme. It's like the Agata medicine. The Agata medicine we just mentioned, the universal panacea that can cure all diseases. Bodhicitta that gives us all happiness indeed has such analogies. Therefore, in our lives and in our practice, everyone must focus on whether bodhicitta can arise in your mind stream, no matter what you do, whether householder or monastic, what kind of practitioner. If you lack bodhicitta, our practice may sound very nice verbally, but actually there's the possibility that it truly lacks substance. All other accumulation of merit, purification of karma, deity meditation, mantra recitation, and so forth, all practices are merely skillful methods for generating precious bodhicitta in our mind strings. All our other activities, whether getting up at 4 a.m. to recite Amitabha, Amitabha, or many people's various kinds of practices and activities, whether daily teaching and explaining Dharma, or what kind of merit, recitation, all are merely methods for generating bodhicitta in our mind streams. With bodhicitta, everything becomes manageable. So all our conduct is merely methods for generating bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is the most complete among all virtues, as also taught in the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels. Great mind bodhicitta is supreme among all minds, liberating from all bondage, complete with all virtues. With bodhicitta, all kinds of afflictions and bondage can be released. All worldly and transcendent virtues will be complete. If we don't rely on bodhicitta but depend on various different parts, we fundamentally cannot achieve perfect enlightenment. Without bodhicitta, whatever conduct we engage in, indeed, we worry that many Buddhists don't understand this principle. So encountering Mahayana Buddhism and encountering lineage masters' precious jewel teachings to us is indeed very valuable and meaningful. I often think this way in my heart. Although in our current era, 21st century humanity has very complex psychology and diversified lifestyles, the world we encounter is such a world. But fortunately, each of us with karmic connection has encountered Mahayana Buddhism. Just encountering Mahayana Buddhism and hearing Buddha's name won't work. Everyone should know the stakes involved. I previously encountered some people who, after studying the way of the Bodhisattva, felt their life truly had a new direction. I think that's correct, because Shantideva's wisdom and his blessings will definitely light a true lamp of liberation for us. If this bodhicitta arises in your mind stream, then whatever Dharma you practice all becomes causes for achieving perfect enlightenment. Whatever Dharma you practice, even if you don't practice Dharma daily, on the surface, whether carrying water, cooking or working on computers daily, on the surface, it appears I'm always in front of a computer, or I'm digging soil daily. Would there be any merit? But actually, if sustained by bodhicitta, these all truly become causes of liberation. So no matter when or where we are, we must study through various skillful methods. By all means, make this unique bodhicitta arise in your mind stream. We must strive diligently now. Many people, I believe those who have heard Mahayana teachings, still know that bodhicitta is indeed very important. Actually, there are many things to say, but I'll finish here and say less. I carry all my pith instructions within my body. The teacher who teaches you the pith instructions of bodhicitta enables you to enter the Mahayana path. Therefore, compared to teachers who give other instructions, their kindness is greater and deeper. So I often think this way too. Encountering one's own teachers who transmit Mahayana Buddhism, sometimes when I think about it, all teachers are fundamentally no different from Buddhas, especially for oneself. Truly, through some teachings, through some excellent treatises, the kindness of these teachers who teach bodhicitta cannot be expressed in words or repaid with anything. Only by wholeheartedly helping some sentient beings can we repay them. Venerable Atisha also, when mentioning other teachers' names, would place his palms together at his chest, but when speaking of his teacher Serlingpa's name, he would place palms together above his head and while shedding tears call out his teacher's name, showing particular respect for his teacher. His disciples often asked, "Venerable One, when you mention various teachers' names, you have such differences. The meaning is, your teacher Serlingpa still has some difference from other teachers. Is it because the teacher's virtues in their mind streams differ in magnitude, or because their kindness to you differs in depth?" When others asked Venerable Atisha, he replied, "All my teachers are great accomplished masters, so their virtues have no differences." Previously, there was a brief biography of Venerable Atisha translated by Master Fazun, not entirely translated by him, which said Venerable Atisha relied on 157 teachers. These teachers had no differences in virtues. All were great accomplished masters. Very remarkable, pure perception. Having over 150 teachers, we should learn from Venerable Atisha. Otherwise, some of us who have received teachings might think, this one is also an ordinary being, that one is also an ordinary being. It seems we can't find a single accomplished master. People with heavy wrong views might think this way. However, their kindness has differences in depth. This small portion of bodhicitta in my mind stream was obtained solely through Serlingpa's kindness. Therefore, his kindness to me is extremely great. Why did he say this? Because the bodhicitta in Venerable Atisha's mind stream came from Serlingpa. Actually, when Venerable Atisha first heard Serlingpa's name, he generated immeasurable joy and was determined to go there to study under him. Later, 125 panditas together went to Serlingpa's land. Serlingpa's land is said to be present-day Sumatra in Indonesia. When studying under him, they had already sailed on the ocean for 13 months. In between, Maheshvala transformed into a great fish intending to swallow and threaten them. Also, for half a month, the ship couldn't sail at all. They encountered many obstacles, but finally arrived there successfully. After arriving, he studied under Serlingpa for 12 years. During those 12 years, he solely practiced exchanging self and others, bodhicitta. Later, he obtained the genuine bodhicitta from his teacher's mind stream. He returned with merchants from Jambudvipa. When Venerable Atisha came to the Tibetan areas, he also greatly praised Serlingpa, saying, all the bodhicitta in his mind stream came from Serlingpa. That's how he honored him. Therefore, each of us will also have many teachers of Mahayana instructions. Looking at the biography at that time, what Venerable Atisha heard from Serlingpa were the Compendium of Training, the Ornament of Clear Realization, and the Way of the Bodhisattva. He mainly studied these three treatises, and then bodhicitta arose in his mind stream. When generating bodhicitta, actually arising bodhicitta is important. This is the saying, generation is not primary, arising is primary. Just verbally generating, I want to generate bodhicitta, saying this isn't very important. What's most important? The mind that truly wants to help and benefit sentient beings must actually arise in our mind streams. Whether it has arisen or not, each person can examine themselves. We humans have self-awareness. You definitely know what your own mind stream is like, so we must find ways by all means. This time when practicing preliminaries, genuine bodhicitta must arise in our mind streams. So compassion and bodhicitta must definitely arise in our mind streams. This time is a rare opportunity for everyone to practice together. I think nothing else matters. Generating one bodhicitta is very important. If you have bodhicitta, everything becomes easy. Practice also becomes very easy because there's no selfishness. Without selfish contamination, whatever dharma we practice becomes easy, and helping sentient beings won't fail. Even if there are some failures, the source of many of our failures and sufferings is the selfish mind. Without a selfish mind, we can liberate sentient beings according to conditions. A while ago, I saw some individual Dharma friends who were particularly distressed when liberating sentient beings. I said, go with conditions, don't have a selfish mind. If you have a selfish mind, you'll truly feel ashamed later, having done so many bad things in between. If you don't have it and do your utmost, you should have a good beginning and end. Conversely, if genuine bodhicitta hasn't arisen and you only verbally recite hundreds of thousands of bodhicitta verses, there won't be even a sesame seed's worth of real meaning. Oh my! Patrul Rinpoche, look, he's not just talking about 100,000 times, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, hundreds of thousands of times, yet not even a sesame seed's worth, not even a tiny bit. Later, including our Guru Rinpoche and many teachers, all said this means very little, with a negative qualifier, meaning very few merits, very few benefits. Because genuinely nothing has arisen in the mind stream, not even a bit of mind to benefit sentient beings. Reciting daily still doesn't have much merit. This is the meaning. It doesn't mean there's no benefit at all from planting virtuous roots in the mind stream, but this is still spoken quite firmly, saying there's not even a sesame seed's worth of real meaning. So, bodhicitta must definitely arise. If you make vows to generate bodhicitta before Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but don't actually practice it, you've clearly deceived all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There's no more serious negative karma than this. Therefore, we must constantly cut off deceptive behavior towards sentient beings. We should never retreat. The Sutra of the Great Assembly also says, evil sentient beings from the 10 directions, holding swords and weapons, threaten my body. Yet my mind will never waver or lose bodhicitta out of compassion for all sentient beings. All evil sentient beings from the 10 directions come with various weapons, holding swords and other weapons beginning to threaten my body. I will never waver in bodhicitta or lose this bodhicitta. Why? Because I've already made vows before Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These sentient beings are very pitiable, and I must definitely liberate them. So if we have such firm vows, bodhicitta won't retreat, and our own practice will also succeed. Therefore, we must constantly cut off deceptive behavior towards sentient beings, and wholeheartedly make genuine bodhicitta arise in our mind streams. Everyone must, not just verbally. When practicing preliminaries, each person must generate at least one genuine bodhicitta in their minds. This is our goal. Everyone should continue practicing. Alright, that's all for today.
Bandara